If he starts interviewing with those teams and Stephen Ross gives him a phone call, then what?
Then what? That is the question. Welcome in this afternoon live. That was from the Zach Gelb show. That was former Wolverine Leroy Horde, the big running back. All right, we got plenty to get to coming up over the next few minutes. A little Harbaugh speculation, coaching carousel for sure, top of mind. Also, we'll hear from a former Wolverine who gained induction into a Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame. One of my favorites. Way too early, top 25. Michigan's in there. Tell you where I saw two way too early top 25, so we'll get to that. And some bracketology already here on this January 11th. Welcome in, Maize and Blue Review, Dennis Fithian, as we talk about what's going on with Michigan every day. What's going on with Michigan is everybody wants to know what's going on with Jim Harbaugh, but very few people do know what's going on with Jim Harbaugh. If you have listened to me, I said, if it gets to the weekend, it makes it to Black Monday, and Jim Harbaugh is still out there. There's no contract signed with Michigan. Well, then it's different. Well, that was yesterday, and so today it is different, in the game that is being played here. If the game is being played by Jim Harbaugh, that his name is out there, and it's money or an ego or a strategy to keep Michigan, top of mind and have their visibility. And along the way, instead of people looking back and having that bitter taste in their mouth against Georgia, it's all about the excitement of, wow, we really need to keep Jim Harbaugh. This could be pivotal in our future in Michigan football history, and him being able to get everything he wants. And then he comes back, the Georgia game is going to be a distant memory, and it's going to be more of a celebration. If that is what Jim Harbaugh is doing, that is a master stroke. I have a hard time buying that. I think that part of this, now that we've gone this far, is, Jim Harbaugh wants to hear what these NFL teams are going to offer up. And, you can start going down the list and this team and that team and how attractive and, full control and how much money and all of that. And if that is the case, and he wants to listen to a number of teams, we could just be getting started with this, because, the two teams that he thought had the most a desire to go after Jim Harbaugh if he made himself available, at least the first two teams that were mentioned, were the Raiders and also the Bears, the team that picked him in the NFL draft way back in the day. Well, the Bears, they had their news conference yesterday with their chairman, George McCaskey, who came out there, and he couldn't have done a worse job. It was like he went up to Detroit and took the Lions playbook from Martha Ford and said, hey, let me do some things that people are really not going to like. What did you do? And, and that's what he did. He went out there and said, I don't know anything about football. The next GM is going to report to me. And that's where you are like, wait a second. What's going on here? You finally broomed the GM and the head coach, and now you're saying you don't know anything about football, and yet everybody's reporting to you. It wasn't comforting if you're a Bears fan. I'm not a Bears fan. So I could just look from afar and say, yeah, that's what the Lions did. The Lions also did something that the Bears did back in the day when they threw themselves on the mercy of the NFL and said, we don't know what we're doing. And the NFL said, well, here's we have help for you. We'll send some people in that have done this before, and they'll make your pick. And, the Bears brought in Ernie Accorsi, and he helped pick Pace, helped select Pace, their general manager, who was shown the door yesterday. And then, ultimately their head coach. And the Lions did the same thing. They brought in Ernie Accorsi and Rod Wood, the Lions president, who was like, I don't know anything about football. I got Matt Stafford on my fantasy team. Everybody's, Accorsi, came in there and said, yeah, let's hire Matt Patricia. So they've got that going on in Chicago. So it's a mess. It's a real mess. That doesn't mean that they can't make the right hire and anything else. They got Leslie Frazier coming in, and they brought Bill Polian, the GM that picked Peyton Manning. and then also infamously said that Lamar Jackson should just turn in and try not to play quarterback, stop wasting his time. Just moved to wide receiver right now. And that kind of, it came back to bite him, but he's there in Chicago. You mentioned Chicago because they're mentioned a lot with Jim Harbaugh. The part is talking to a friend of mine in Vegas who says, he was saying he's got all of his connections in Chicago, and he's saying, he doesn't think that the Bears front office would pay the kind of money and would relinquish the full control to Jim Harbaugh, even though the fans would like it and the rest of the NFL would like it. He doesn't see the Bears doing that. I mean, it was his opinion. And he also said that Vegas fans right now, they are in love with Rich Bisaccia. Rich Bisaccia, who got the victory last week against the Chargers and made it into the playoffs. Now, things can change on Saturday if the Raiders go into Cincinnati and, get their clocks cleaned. Those same Vegas fans that were excited about making the playoffs and Bisaccia winning that game could also say, all right, we're ready to move on here. And, Harbaugh's name could be back in play there. But right now that one's on hold. But, you go through the Dolphins and the Giants and the Vikings and the teams that have the openings, and some of them with the GM and the coaches there, vice versa. And, if like I said, if Jim Harbaugh is doing this strategically all along, he's you know what? People aren't going to be talking about the last game. They're going to be talking about the future with Michigan football. Then it is a master stroke of genius, and it will be amazing. I thought that any minute after yesterday or this morning where Jim Harbaugh wasn't coming back to Michigan was, I lost a little bit more of my confidence that he actually would come back, because, it's one thing to, show interest, feign interest, to get the visibility. There's another one, to talk on the phone, but, what's next now? Interviewing. And are you really interviewing if, your whole idea is just to prop this thing up, for visibility or scratch that itch because it's the last time? And, you get into that itch scratching scenario, and these NFL teams can be very persuasive, when they come in and start, they got to make a pitch. They got to recruit Jim Harbaugh. Maybe that's just what he wants to go through one last time. Again, maybes, and we'll see. And we don't know. Every minute that goes by from here, my confidence is, less that, it's a sure thing that he's coming back to Michigan. I think this is a pivotal week or two. Can you imagine if we're sitting here? Can I imagine me sitting here next week at this time saying singing the same tune about, well, I don't know, let's just see. I can, but I can't at the same time. This is, to sound too dramatic, but this is feels like one of those pivotal points in Michigan football history. Like, if Jim Harbaugh ends up coming back, maybe it's right now, maybe it's, tomorrow, maybe it's next week, whatever. And if he does come back, then it is really a parade. I think the enthusiasm for Michigan football, if Jim Harbaugh comes back, would only be matched from when he took over the job. Now, I remember being at the Illinois basketball game, like great seats. Went as a fan, and I was, sitting down there 2 rows off of the court, and Harbaugh, was coming back, and it was the game against Illinois. I think Michigan ended up coming back in the second half and winning that game, but he comes walking in, he's up on the big board there. Everybody just gets up and is cheering him. And, I don't need to tell you, there was incredible enthusiasm about the football program and what he might be able to do. And if at this time he is able to do that again, it feels like act 2, a second half of this book, which is an incredible story. A coach that came back with all the fanfare of the world, looked like he was going to restore the glory for Michigan football. And then year by year, although it wasn't, horrible, not being able to beat the rival and going 7 years. And it was like, oh, this isn't going to work. And, the majority of people, in my judgment, last year were ready to move on from Jim Harbaugh. Dyed in the wool, alums, anything. Former players, my feeling is that there was just as many people that were ready to say goodbye as were ready to dig into a foxhole and say, let's keep going. Hope he comes back. I think people were ready, to go ahead and have him move on. Oh, let me. A big moment in Michigan football history. I can tell you how people are going to feel if he comes back. I can tell you how people feel if he's going to go. And most people are still hanging on the hope that he is coming back, and that this is just a courtship. No, not a court. This is just a move to. To go out there and put some feelers out just to see what the NFL, teams are saying, because it's the one last time. Again, that doesn't make me feel that doesn't make me feel great. If I'm a Michigan fan and I'm telling you that, I could see where you would be listening to me and you're going to say, really? He's just doing this all with the idea of propping Michigan up, and then he's going to come back, or to run an end around on all the negativity, if there, was still going to be some lingering negativity about that last game at Georgia, and get everybody's focus on, hey, let's talk about Harbaugh because look at how awesome it would be, rather than, the end of the year. I'm not buying that. I'm buying that, if there is an interest and he's going to listen, and we'll see if there's any offers. We'll see how far it goes. And if everything is about leverage and this is creating it, I can see it certainly is creating a lot of leverage. Although, like I said, with the kick that the Raiders made on Sunday night, the leverage that was sky high there in Vegas has gone down dramatically. And in fact, if the Raiders win, of course, it would be over. I mean, there's a chance for sure that Las Vegas goes into Cincinnati, gets popped, and this love affair with Bisaccia is over, and that the Raiders are right back at it, right back in there in the coaching carousel, looking for a GM as well. And then Harbaugh's name's right back in there. And then he's got all that leverage. Chicago, whether it's a mess or not, the fans want him. And a lot of that, it's all that matters. They're beating the drum for Harbaugh. Well, at the top there, I played Leroy Horde. He was a guest on that the show that I mentioned, the Zach Gelb show. Leroy Horde, the former Wolverine. I've got another piece of audio from the Gelb show. Here's Horde.
Yes or no? Is Jim Harbaugh coaching the Dolphins next year, or is he back at Michigan or somewhere else?
Wow. I'm going to say he's back at Michigan.
All right, so there's Leroy Horde. A little bit more audio from the bank here. This comes from a reporter for NFL.com named Jeff Chadiha. Jeff Chadiha, for those of you old enough, like me, Jeff Chadiha, back when there was a newspaper in Ann Arbor called the Ann Arbor News, he worked there as a columnist before going into the NFL, and he's now at NFL.com. He's working for he was on the Jim Rome show yesterday, and he was asked what's up with Jim Harbaugh.
So I think more than anything, I think he'll listen to overtures from the NFL. I think he'll enjoy the victory lap he's been on, even though they had a tough loss to Georgia. He did a great job with that program, turning it around this year and getting into the Big Ten championship and the college football playoffs. But I think first and foremost, he wants to be paid. Anytime you see what they're paying to coach in Michigan State, what they're paying to coach in Penn State, what the coach from Oklahoma just got to go to USC, that kind of money, I guarantee you Jim Harbaugh's saying, I want a piece of that. So more than anything else, I think he's going to stay at Michigan, but he's going to find a way to get into that, back into that high upper echelon salary range.
Hey, listen.
Yeah, and that's Jeff Chadiha. And, from the money angle, if you're like, the Harbaugh doesn't care about money. He's got all the money in the world. I mean, what you find is that people that have a lot of money, they want more money. And, the one thing, money equals power. And a lot of people, myself included, goes back to when Harbaugh there at that introductory Orange Bowl press conference was like, I'll do this for free. So, yeah, he loves it. But you know what? He really wouldn't do it for free, because if you don't have any money, you don't have any power. And the whole thing about, getting, salary cut in half, people love bringing that up. Like, oh, Jim Harbaugh, what a humiliating move by Michigan, to cut your salary in half. Well, certainly with the buyout that went down and all of that. I mean, right. He was getting closer to the door here where obviously he could be removed. Now he's in a situation where he can ask for anything that he wants. He can ask for more money than Mel Tucker, and he should get it. And it was pointed out to me right before I came on when I was talking with somebody that he said, look, instead of this being like he's going to the NFL, it is about getting Michigan lined up where you have the leverage, where everything that you can want, everything that you could want, money-wise for yourself, money-wise for your assistants, money's for the setting up how whatever it's going to look with the name, image, and likeness that I know gets talked about a lot. Some people say it's not that big of a deal and everything else. It's a big deal. If you don't think it's a big deal, then you're just happy, which is fine with, the old way last year. And, the way college football has been played up to this point, under the table, gray areas. You want Michigan to just stay the course of where they, have always been. Like, no, we're not getting involved in that. Even though it's not a gray area and now it's above board, there are some people like, no, Michigan's not doing any of that. Well, maybe they're not. But maybe there was enough people that liked, going to Indianapolis and liked, how much more interest there was in trying to get into Michigan because maybe there are enough people that want to compete for a national championship. And if they are, there is a way there. And maybe this is Jim, playing that leverage game, the money game, and the power game where, yes, we need this. The Porsche dealership, down the road there, right across from the tennis building, once in a while, we're going to be sending some guys in there. You're going to be sending them down the street with a 911. Maybe. I don't know how all that's going, but, it's a new game that's being played here. So maybe this high stakes poker game that Jim Harbaugh is playing is doing this to get everything that he wants for his assistants, for the program, everything, down to, meals and all of it, advertising, the whole kit and caboodle. He came in. I also recall some of the conversations a year or two in when Harbaugh was here, and he didn't say this publicly, but he was telling, his close friends. I mean, he doesn't have that many, but, former players and friends of his that, look, things are going well, but it's going to take a while to get the kind of talent Ohio State. And he even mentioned Notre Dame. Like it takes multiple years to get to that point. Now, when you get to that college football playoff, and you see what's going on with Georgia and Alabama, and you watch that game again last night, you say, you know what, it's like, is the ceiling going to be beating Ohio State once every 5, 6, 7 years, 4? Or is it going to be like, we're going to play the game of the big boys, and then you're going to try to win every other year against Ohio State, if not take 2 out of 3, and get to the college football playoff and win it. I know it had been since 1980. There'll be tears in people's eyes. Is it going to be, 17 more years before Michigan, has a crack at winning it all? I know Georgia had a crack a couple years ago. You get what I'm saying there. So Venice Blue Dev says he thinks Harbaugh is going to the NFL. Time to move forward to a new coach. Who got next? Yeah, I don't think Michigan's ready to do that. It's like if that bridge presents itself, well, then they're going to have to do something there. But I don't. And Ward Manuel probably should be thinking about his 3-4 deep there. He should do that anyways. And if he sit back, doesn't have any idea, on who he would pass the baton to, that would be something. But and you can think about that. I would think that they would stay right on the staff. There's at least 3. Maybe 4 guys that you could go to on that staff. So it's pretty easy, starting with the coordinators and, going down to Mike Hart and Sharon Moore. I know these things get debated all the time on the Wolverine Den, part of the Maize and Blue Review, on, what that board would look like in Ward Manuel's office. So, there's some of the things that I'm thinking about with Harbaugh. And, I talked about the Dolphins yesterday. You heard Jeff Shadia. I've got some more audio for you here. We'll get to the Michigan recruiting spotlight. We'll give you Joe Lenardi, the bracketologist, what he has. This just came out moments ago, where he has Michigan. I know they're kind of not top of mind right now because the Michigan State game was canceled. Tonight's game, postponed. And tonight's game against Purdue, postponed. And the next time Michigan is scheduled to play is Friday. We'll get you that latest bracketology, the Memorabilia Minute, all of that ahead. But, congratulations goes out to a former Wolverine and Mark Messner. And Messner gets elected to the College Football Hall of Fame. And Messner was an awesome defensive tackle for Michigan back in the mid-'80s. I talked with Messner last year, and I asked him if 85 was the best Michigan team that he played on. Here's what he said.
It's kind of funny. The reason I think that we came out with such fire was because that came off of Bo's worst season ever, 6-6. That was my red shirt year, and I sat there and questioned, oh my gosh, did I come to Michigan just in time for it to start a decline? And, Bo being the coach that he was, could sense that there was questions and doubt. And our spring ball that year really typified and exemplified those who stay will be champions, because we had players jumping like fleas on a dog, going to other schools, thinking that after that spring ball and that, this is not worth it. We're getting the living tar beat out of each other. But what he did was he brought everybody together and said, we are Michigan. And people are, the fans, other teams think, hey, this isn't the Michigan like it used to be. This is the decline. This is when we can get them. And they took us for granted. And we were as high and as fired up and as confident as we could be as a team. And then we just hit some people in the mouth right away, especially on the defense. I don't think we gave up a touchdown in 85 for like 6 games before the first touchdown got across that line. And, we played with some tenacity. And I think that's really what happens, that you either think somebody's really good and they disappoint, or somebody's not that good and the players take offense to that. And when you have a great coach, because there is really no bad team, it's bad leadership. You have a great coach and you bring them together, it works.
There he is. Congratulations to Mark Messner for getting into the College Football Hall of Fame. Overdue, but he's in there. And I know he's ecstatic and appreciative about getting the call. All right. The Michigan Recruiting Spotlight coming your way here every day. We'll look at some aspect of recruiting. And today we look at the quarterback position. And Michigan recently offering the number 1 recruit in the country, according to Rivals. And his name, Arch Manning. And Arch Manning is the number 1 recruit, regardless of position. Obviously, the number 1 quarterback, the Manning name right there. And Jim Harbaugh connected with Arch Manning's high school coach recently, which recently, like in the last couple of days, just when this offer came through. So you could look at that. If you're looking for anything like that's a bad sign, that's a good sign that Harbaugh's in communication with a recruit for next year and his high school coach and just continue. That's a good sign. So, take it for what it's worth. A good sign. But is Michigan really interested in Arch Manning? What does this mean about the quarterback out of King in Detroit, Dante Moore, who's ranked 13 overall, but the number 3 quarterback in the country? Some think, could be just as good as Arch Manning. Sure. He's special. Michigan's been in on him. Well, the way recruiting goes, if Arch Manning wants to have a conversation with Jim Harbaugh, or, doing his diligence, do you take the call or you make the offer? If Arch wants to come in, yeah. And every school obviously wants Arch Manning, but that is the Michigan Recruiting Spotlight, because it is at least, in play. There's an offer there. There was some communication. So something at least to keep an eye on and be abreast of when it comes down to recruiting and who does have next. All right. There was a way too early top 25 and some bracketology to get to as well. So let's do that while we have the time here, and nothing but time. And for the way too early top 25, I saw ESPN put one of these out, and they had Alabama 1, not a surprise. Georgia 2, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, Texas A&M 4, Michigan number 5 in the way too early top 25. Michigan, a top 5 team in the preseason. Now, yeah, nobody cares about preseason polls. They don't mean anything. Look what happens. Last year, Michigan wasn't in the preseason top 25, and they made it into the Final Four. So it's just a gauge. It's just for off-season interest. It means it doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. But what it does mean, if you look, and I hadn't gone through Bama's, Ohio State's, Georgia's, Texas A&M schedule, but when you look at Michigan next year, starting with Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, and Maryland in their first 4 games, they don't play. They play at Iowa on October the 1st. That'll be the game. I think Michigan's going to start 4-0. And if Michigan, they're going to be ranked in the top 10, maybe if they go by ESPN's poll, they'd be ranked in the top 5. I said they'll be in the top 10, probably for sure, maybe top 5. But all of those teams going 4-0. I mean, could you see Michigan being number 4, number 3? Yeah, I mean, you could. I saw Stuart Mandel, covers college football for The Athletic. He did a way too early top 25. He did not have Michigan at 5, but he did have them at 7. So there you go. He had OSU at 2, Michigan at 7. Michigan State in both SI and the Athletics way too early top 25 poll. They made the top 10 in both. Michigan 5 and 7 in the other. So that Big Ten East, which is it has been rough, of course, with Ohio State in there. Now Michigan State. Now you get Penn State in there. Last year, Indiana was being thrown around a lot. So a topic for the spring and summer. Let's bust up the Big Ten East. Let's refigure, the Big Ten East and the Big Ten. They did it before. Maybe they should do it again, because of the lopsided part of the power and what's going on. And I'm for that. And in the off season, what you can make a case for is right now. Let's wait till a couple more weeks, if not months, for that. All right. Usually you think about bracketology, you're waiting until, March to look at, Joey brackets and Joe Lenardi, but he put, I don't know if this is his first of his bracketology of who's in and who's out, but I saw it just as I was turning on the cameras and the mic here on TMBR this afternoon live. I saw Joe Lenardi put out his bracketology, and he had something that Michigan showed up in the bracketology. They didn't show up in making the tournament right now. I think you can understand that, but Michigan did show up here. Let's see where they're at. And you can look at the list. I should be able to throw this up on the screen. I can do that. I got to learn how to do that or do it. You probably can't read that. Michigan, last 4 buys, last 4 in, no Big Ten teams, last 4 buys, which I think means that you're not in the play-in games, like Michigan State was last year. No Big Ten. First 4 out, Minnesota. And the first 4 out, the next 4 out. UCF, who beat Michigan, TCU, and Texas A&M. So as it sits right now with what Lenardi had to say, Michigan not in the first 4 out, but the next 4 out. And you know what? I just took a little shot at Michigan State, for the play-in game. I would take a play-in game right now if it was offered up to me. The play-in game? Yes. I would take the play-in game right now. Speaking of play-in games, you got the NFL playoffs, wild card weekend starting out. And, I didn't know. It's been a long time since I've collected cards, but, I just collect things they just come up and then I keep them, whatever it is, magazines or things like that. But I found a box downstairs of some football cards over the last 10 years. And here you go for the Memorabilia Minute, somebody who's in the playoffs coming up this weekend. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their quarterback, Tom Brady. I didn't think I had any memorabilia with Tom Brady. I just looked really quick, like, what would they be selling this Tom Brady card for? And I saw it anywhere from $3 to $300. Just this one little particular card here. I don't think I could get. I would take $3 if I could get it right now. But it's not a surprise considering how long Tom Brady has played in the NFL. But could you imagine if you just collected Tom Brady cards or Tom Brady memorabilia and just how much stuff you could have just in cards, if that's the direction you want to go? Not a bad way to go about collecting. The stuff's through the roof to the moon with all of his stuff. That is the Memorabilia Minute, a Tom Brady card. All right. Well, tomorrow we'll start. It's just been all. I think most people are, if not obsessed, highly interested in what's going on with Michigan football and their head coach. And you know what? You should be. I know it's a waiting pattern in some ways. You think, okay, let me just go try to do something, but you can't. And I understand. And I'll say it again. I mean, this is one of the biggest weeks, if not 2 weeks, in Michigan football history. They keep Jim Harbaugh. You feel good about, of course, what happened last year, and that he has also gone to the administration saying, look, I don't think Jim Harbaugh is coming back to Michigan with the idea like, okay, I recouped my, $4 million. I'm making 8 or 9 now. And, we're just going to go in the off season and, the name, image, and likeness, that's not a big deal. And we're just, going to get back to practice and try to keep that same energy. The idea here, the good part is if Harbaugh comes back, you're getting Harbaugh, you're getting the springboard into the offseason of winning the Big Ten, and you're also getting Jim with a new contract, and then also with the power to say, look, this is what Michigan football needs. And if he is coming back, I think you can feel pretty confident as a Michigan football fan that, Harbaugh feels good about the chances of being able to not only compete with Ohio State year in and year out, not only to winning the Big Ten, but getting to the college football playoff. And yeah, it'd take more than 1 year, and beating Georgia or beating Bama or, getting back. But the idea of, okay, so let's boil that down again. Jim, this is why it's such a big week and a big announcement that's forthcoming. Harbaugh comes back. I think if you're a Michigan football fan, you can feel like it's not just winning the Big Ten. It getting to the college football playoff. It's about winning it all. That's a pretty dramatic step up. Last year I had reduced my expectations. Like, I didn't even think, I just hope Michigan plays well against Ohio State. I don't expect them to beat them. I lowered my expectation. Now, and then you'd say, well, what if they ever did? Would you expect them? No, I wouldn't expect them to win the college football playoff. And then this year was a little different where you looked at it and said, oh, maybe they can, because it doesn't truly look like there's any dominant team. And especially with what Alabama was able to do against Georgia, it was like, hey, both of those teams are a little bit down, or, Georgia can be had. Look at their little quarterback and the walk-on quarterback, and look at Alabama, some of the trouble. But now, if Harbaugh's coming back, you feel like, he's coming back with the idea that he can compete with Alabama and Georgia, not just Ohio State. And that is music to Michigan football fans' ears. Now, if he takes door 2, which, it's, again, could happen. I mean, you at least have to think about it for a second. If he does take that, all of that stuff you just talked about is, that's how you start feeling about all of that. And that is not a very good feeling at all about what's going to happen with Michigan football. So that's why it is one of the most pivotal weeks, days here in Michigan football history. Finding out when you're going to get the news that the coach is making it official and he's coming back or not. We're sitting here every minute and thinking about it. You should go to the Maize and Blue Review and check that out. I think I just deleted. Oh, I hit the wrong key. Thought I deleted the whole show. That's good that I didn't do that. We'll be back tomorrow, same time. We'll be here talking with you, and we'll see if we have any further developments. The Jim Harbaugh story. Till then, thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Stay warm.